Good afternoon from Olympia, Washington. My name is Bobby Johnson
from Olympia, Washington.
My name is
I should
Bobby
turn that
Johnson.
off.
I'll try it again. Good afternoon from Olympia, Washington. My name is Bobby Johnson, and it's Monday, March 25th of 2019. Thanks for coming and checking out my stream. Today I'm going to be casting my vote for the .NET Foundation Board of Directors. You may be asking yourself, why would I be streaming that? And the last few weeks have been kind of crazy for me. I've been offline taking care of my family. It started a few weeks back with my father-in-law entering hospice. And right after that, my mother-in-law had knee replacement surgery. And then my wife was scheduled to have a hysterectomy, which has like a 6-week recovery time. In the first 2 weeks of that, she's not allowed to get out of bed. So I took some time off to care for my family. And about 2 weeks into that time off, my father-in-law passed away from complications of Parkinson's. So it was kind of one punch after another, and I haven't been streaming. I wasn't on Twitter that much. I wasn't working. And I wanted to have something simple to get back into streaming with, and I thought this was something I didn't really need to prepare for, and I could just, start streaming and get back into that role. Anyway, I don't want to be too dramatic about all that stuff. Life happens when you get older. Life sometimes hits you with the 1-2 punch. But I do want to thank everyone that reached out to me to make sure that I was okay. With special shout outs to Ian Davis, Mike Jolly, and Jacob Daniels. It's nice to know there are people out there that cared enough about my mental state to check in on me and make sure I wasn't crazy, like losing it. Anyway, I wanted to get back into streaming, and I am a .NET Foundation member, which means I get a vote in the elections for the board of directors. And I thought it might be fun to stream me casting my ballot. And you might be asking why I would want to do that. And considering who I'd cast my ballot for, I started to worry I was simply going to cast my ballots for people I knew directly. People I recognize from Twitter, or some other arbitrary attribute, probably in that order. I didn't want to overlook a great candidate simply because I don't follow them or have never run into them at a conference or had a long, meaningful talk at a pub. So I thought I would try to come up with a list of things I would want to see represented in the .NET Foundation's board. These criteria are completely arbitrary, but at least it represents what I would want to see in the board of directors for the .NET Foundation. So let's hop over here to my editor, or my browser. And this is the .NET Foundation website, and specifically about the election that is there. And these are all of the candidates. And when I originally posted on Twitter that I was going to be doing this, I didn't realize there were like 42 candidates. So this might be a pretty long stream because I want to give each of them a genuine shot. So I mentioned criteria. Of course, I'm a computer nerd, so spreadsheets was the first thing I thought of to do. And I started thinking, what were some of the things that I would want to evaluate each person on? And I just want to kind of go through those and just kind of describe why they're there and what I intend them to mean. Right. So the first one is alt.net. Was the person involved with alt.net either as a participant, speaker, or writer? Alt.net was my first big open source movement in .NET, and I learned a ton from people involved with it. It was pushing people to learn about open source and other development ecosystems long before such ideas were popular in the .NET space. And I feel these people had skin in the game long before it became trendy in .NET. Right up after that is another conference, and I want to know if the people were involved in .NET Fringe as a participant or a speaker. .NET Fringe was a great, quirky reimagining of OSS and .NET with a friendlier face than alt.net ended up being. They promoted a playful sense of discovery and inclusion, and everyone was welcome and encouraged to participate. And I'd like to see that spirit live on in the .NET Foundation itself. The next one is, does this person maintain an open source project? Dealing with the open source public can sometimes be a lesson in frustration, and people who do so are dedicated and sacrifice their own time and resources for the community. That should be rewarded with recognition. People like Hammett, Jeremy, Jimmy, make .NET exciting, and all had a profound impact on my career. So I definitely want my vote to be going to open source project maintainers. Does the person work in a non-Windows environment? Are they bringing .NET and C# to the greater open source community? I'm excited about the possibilities of .NET on Linux and OS X. I would like to see board members who are as excited as I am about those possibilities and want to bring the larger open source community on board. Is the person a regular public speaker, or conference attendee, or writer? This is more about how accessible and engaged they are with the community. Am I likely to bump into them at a conference and strike up a conversation about what they're doing for the .NET Foundation? I like to think that the board members are not some ivory tower architects who are nameless and unapproachable, but they're like John Galloway, who shows up at .NET Fringe sitting on a couch and you can just sit next to him and start talking to him. I would like to see all of the board of directors be that accessible. The next criteria is a good pitch. Each candidate's written up a bit of text describing why they want to be a board member. Is it a good reason? Does it make me consider their point of view? Do I agree with them? This one is tough. I'm a true believer in diversity contributing positively to a team. As an old married white guy, this is my effort to put my money where my mouth is on the topic. I am putting my thumb on the scale for diverse candidates, which is tough in determining that what candidates are underrepresented. Women and racial minorities are easy to pick out in a set of profile images, but LGBTQ and people over, say, 40 like I am aren't necessarily, unless they come out and say it in their pitches. I intend to do my best, but please don't hate me for leaving someone out or having this as a criteria. I'm human, right? Finally, I want to mention that these are my opinions and decisions, not my employer's. I'm making snap judgments and decisions in public. I will probably make mistakes and wrong assumptions. Those mistakes are mine, and I apologize for them in advance. Hopefully, we'll take them in the spirit of the stream and not see them as malicious. Right, so getting back over to the spreadsheet, I basically have my criteria across the top, and then there are checkboxes that I can check for each candidate for the positions, and you see each checkbox counts as a single point for each of those members. My intention is to go through all of these members, look at their profile that they've created on the elections website, and try my best to evaluate each one of these categories. And then my intention is to sort this list by total points and take the top 10 and slot them in as my votes. So does that make sense to everyone? Anyone see any problems with my criteria or want to bring up a criteria that maybe is more appropriate for what I'm trying to do? Yeah, let's see. It looks like we have quite a few people joined in. Ancient Coder's with me. Nice to see you, Ancient Coder. I'm just going to call you Banana Phone. Banana Phone. That's pretty awesome. Codeman Codes is here. Digital Drummer, I've seen you around. Thanks for showing up. Harold, how's it going, Harold? Rambling Geek, thanks for joining in. I thought you were doing a stream. I got a notification saying that that you were doing a stream. Oh, Digital Drummer, that's a good criteria. Are they a conference organizer? I'm going to go ahead and throw that one in, and let's see if it affects the scores any. All right, so... All right, that's a pretty good one. I do kind of have two that are related to conferences already, Alt.NET and .NET Fringe. Those are kind of specific to me. They're the type of conferences that I like to go to. And so I would like to see members of that community represented. But being a conference organizer definitely shows maybe it's a corollary to being an OSS maintainer, right? Maybe you don't actively maintain open source projects, but you definitely give back to the community by organizing conferences. So I like that one. Any other comments on that? And I think actually one of the candidates, I'm going to go with S. Schneidenbach. Let me know if I pronounce that correctly. Is actually one of our candidates. So, S. Schneidenbach, if I misrepresent you in some way, feel free to hit me up and let me know, hey, no, you're wrong about that. Or if you know some of the people on the list and I say something inappropriate about them, or inaccurate, I should say, not inappropriate, jump in and let me know. That's just kind of what I'm going to do. And I'm going to start with, I'm going to go with Maria Wenzel. This list that I have right here of, what was it? What did it end up being? 45 people is in the exact order they show up on the candidate page. And I have not refreshed this page because every time it refreshes, it reorganizes them in a different way. So let's start out with Maria and take a look at her description. So Maria says she is running because she's super passionate about .NET, open source in our community. She wanted to see a board for the .NET Foundation that is diverse, inclusive, and rich in terms of different experiences and skills. All right, I like that. I love helping people, coaching them, and how to get started contributing to open source projects. As a woman and as a Latina, as a working mother, I'd love to help create a safe environment to contribute and have your voices heard. I want to help grow the foundation, and I'd like to get more connected with the .NET community in Brazil as well, since that's her country of origin. She started programming in .NET back in 2003, and today she's a content developer for .NET at Microsoft, which means she's responsible for writing some of the documentation you see on docsmicrosoft.com, .NET. This job gives her a lot of experience in working on and running open source projects since it's what she does on a daily basis. Handy for community projects. If I have to read all these out to you guys over and over, so it's gonna take forever. So I'm gonna kind of skim a little bit. Let's see. She also volunteers on coding workshops in partnership with Ignite Worldwide to teach girls and non-binary students how to code, elementary through high school. That's a significant contribution in my mind. Developing a coding workshop and actually pulling them off is a tremendous amount of work, and it's a thankless amount of work. So I really appreciate Maria's contribution there. Let's see. She gives us some links to the .NET docs that she works on, the API docs, the .NET samples, session at .NET Conf. So she's spoken at .NET Conf. And she did a Gals interview on Channel 9. So very nice. Let's pop back over here to the criteria and see if any of these apply to her. I didn't see any mention of Alt.NET or .NET Fringe. Did she say she organizes conferences? I would say the workshops kind of qualify there, right? Does anybody disagree with that? I'm going to go ahead and tag that and see if anybody disagrees with me. She is an open source maintainer. The non-Microsoft category was... did I mention that in my list? I might have skipped over that one. So what I meant by non-Microsoft was, is this person not a Microsoft employee? I would like to see the .NET Foundation populated by people that are outside of the Microsoft communication model, right? So people that come from diverse backgrounds of thought and not necessarily constantly thinking in just the Microsoft way. It looks like Maria does work at Microsoft, so that one would not apply to her. Non-Windows, I did not see anything in her description about working in non-Windows environments. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that one off. If anyone is aware of her doing so, please let me know. She is a public speaker. I enjoyed her pitch quite a bit. Really good. And she definitely is a member of underrepresented groups. So of my categories, Maria got 5 points. Right? So I'll go ahead and drop off Maria and go down to the next person, which is, I'm going to go with Matthias Carlson. And Matthias says he is running because he would like to influence and inspire the direction of the foundation, both in general, but with a few areas in particular. Increased communication between projects. Combined, there's a lot of know-how and experiences. Offer more services and guidance, recipes to aid with maintaining projects. Increase .NET Foundation local presence to raise awareness of the foundation, acknowledge local communities. Diversity, how we can grow and ensure a healthy .NET community, mentorship, and sponsorship. He offers an interview with Spencer Schneidenbach, which I believe is in chat, about him running for the .NET Board of Directors. Let's see. Don't really want to listen to the interviews. I probably should have did that before I started this, but c'est la vie. His .NET contributions include meetups. He's on the board and an active organizer of the local meetup and DevOps user group. Open source, he contributes to and maintains several .NET open source projects, most known for being on maintainers behind the .NET build orchestration tool Cake and .NET JSON serializer LitJSON. So two quality projects there. He's a speaker who regularly speaks at local user groups, conferences, and schools about .NET related topics. That's a really good thing to point out about reaching out to local schools when you're talking. I like that. I try to do that myself when I'm traveling around, and I try to reach out to schools and any kind of computer programming training going on at a high school. I offer to come in and speak to the class, so I really appreciate that. He's on the board at 2 .NET higher vocational education programs. He does offer a link to his blog, his 2 open source contributions, and his MVP profile. I'm going to take a peek at that real quick and see if it mentions anything about alt.net or Fringe. Let's see. Not Fringe. I don't see that one either. Cool. All right. So let's go back and try filling in the spreadsheet for Matthias. Alt.net or Fringe, I didn't find anything on that. Is he a conference organizer? I believe he said he's done some organizing of local meetups. So I'll go ahead and give him that one, because that's another one of those thankless things. He is an open source maintainer. I didn't see anything specific about non-Microsoft, about him being a Microsoft employee. So I'm going to go ahead and give him that one. Non-Windows, I didn't see anything specifically about that. He is a public speaker. His pitch was a little light, especially compared to Maria. She had a great pitch. So I'm going to not give him that one, but not because I didn't like his pitch. It's just I'm trying to reserve that one for ones that have exceptional pitches, right? And underrepresented, I don't know, he kind of looks like a white guy just like me, so I'm going to not give him that one either. So, Matthias, I'm sorry if that put you out of the running, but that was my criteria. So let's see. Let's go on with Oren. I know Oren. I see him on Twitter all the time. Let's see, why is Oren running? He is currently a member of the board and the foundation's de facto CISO. He's also a Microsoft Regional Director, an MVP, a Chief Architect of DevOps and Modern Software at Insight. Over the past several years, he served on the Foundation's Advisory Council and then the author of its code signing service. He's passionate about helping projects succeed, big believer of secure and fully automated DevOps. To that end, he runs the Foundation's Azure DevOps org. Help most of the current projects, build system, code signing, help the Foundation establish a partnership with DigiCert to enable those services. And he wants to continue to help projects with their DevOps needs, running and evolving code signing services, and driving the growth of the .NET ecosystem. Hey, Sean. Cool. Well, when I get to your profile, Feel free to pipe up and tell me if I've misrepresented you in any way. And if I have any questions, I'll feel free to shoot them at you. Thanks for joining the stream. I really appreciate you being here. Looking at Oren's .NET contributions, reactive extensions for .NET. That is a great project. He's contributed to XUnit, which is my unit testing framework of choice. I have used Humanizer. That is a great library. The Windows Community Toolkit, NuGet Package Explorer, MS Build SDK. He has an MVP profile. I'm going to pop in there and I'm trying to find some way of finding out if these people were involved in Alt.NET or Fringe. If anybody knows, please pipe up. Nothing on there about Alt.NET. I want to say I met Oren at .NET Fringe, but I could be wrong. All right. Doesn't look like it. So let's pop back over here and try filling out our criteria for him. I didn't see any reference to Alt.NET or .NET Fringe. Conference organizing. Did he say he organized some conferences? Microsoft Regional Director, Chief Architect. Yeah, I don't see anything in there. I know he's a public speaker because I've seen him speak before. He does maintain some OSS. He is a Microsoft employee. I didn't see anything specific about non-Windows development. He's definitely a public speaker. His pitch is very good. He's already a board member. And underrepresented, I'm going to go ahead and leave that one off as well. All right, so let's move on. The next one is Hack, Mr. Phil Hack. Everybody knows who that guy is. Let's see, why is Phil running? If he's elected, he promises world peace, unlimited ice cream, and 3-day weekends. I'm sold. Unfortunately, none of those are my criteria. Assuming he has any power to affect those three things, for OSS to really thrive, it needs to move out from under Microsoft's shadow. I'm a firm believer in that. I believed that since my Alt.NET days, and be a truly community-driven effort. The community includes other corporations who benefited from open source, but haven't yet invested in it. While I appreciate Microsoft's enormous contribution to open source software, I'm running to help the .NET open source community grow independently. I say that as a former Microsoft employee who shipped some of the first supported open source products at Microsoft, MVC, NuGet. NuGet in particular has had a major impact on making OSS easier to publish and consume for .NET developers. He worked at GitHub, the largest open source code hosting platform in existence. Community under the sun. I see how these communities compare. So he's very involved with the open source community, not just in .NET, but the greater community. Let's see. His .NET contributions were NuGet, MVC, Reactive UI, Monkey Space, and .NET Fringe. And he offers a link. So let's see if I can apply my criteria to Phil. I've met Phil at Alt.NET. I met him at Fringe. I'm pretty certain he's a conference organizer. Does it explicitly call that out here? That he helped organize? Yeah, of course. So he is a conference organizer. He does no longer work for Microsoft, but he has in the past. I know he's done non-Windows development. He's a public speaker. World Peace is a pretty good pitch. I'm gonna hold off on good pitch. And underrepresented, I'm gonna hold off on that one as well. Anybody disagree with those? Digital Drummer says that Oren is not a Microsoft employee if he's an MVP or regional director. Let me pull him back up and take a peek at that. So, Microsoft Regional Director, MVP. Yeah, so I was assuming Regional Director was his role at Microsoft. So I will pop that one off real quick. Thanks for pointing that out to me, guys. He is non-Microsoft. Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you. So we've gotten through our first four. Next one is, I'm going to take a stab at this. I'm going to say Pratik Khandelwal. Pratik Khandelwal. Let's go with that one. Conference organizer for Phil. Thank you. All right. So let's see a little bit about Pratik. He is a final year computer science student. Microsoft student partner for 2 years from India. Currently doing an internship. Going to be freshly out of college. Always experimented with lots of technologies. Finding a home in .NET. He began developing UWPs for personal projects, then moving on to ASP.NET, Xamarin, Internet of Things. Has given a try to almost everything good. A developer of my own heart. I love dipping my fingers into all sorts of things. Let's see. Why is he running? As we keep growing, I think there is one area I think we can do better. I've seen a real lack of awareness about the awesomeness .NET has to offer among non-industry professionals, to be specific students. As an MSP, I visited a fair amount of universities in my country to conduct tech talks and workshops, and the lack of awareness always irked me. Most students in my experience were always really fascinated by the power and flexibility of .NET, the .NET ecosystem has to offer after the workshop, and wish they had known that earlier. A student like me, but if I do get elected, I would love to work with the community to push student engagement and give young generations an opportunity to make an informed decision. Cool. So his .NET contributions, he's the author of ASP.NET MongoDB documentation and samples. Currently working on Raspberry Pi NuGet package for Windows Internet of Things Core to simplify developer experience. Coming to non-tech contributions, I founded a Microsoft student technical community on his campus. They do workshops on different .NET technologies in Azure. Establishing the community was a goal of his as he joined the university. He's a Microsoft fanboy. Well, you don't hear that very often. There wasn't a Microsoft community then. Establishing the community and bringing constant engagement is one of the fun things. So it sounds like he's a student, very heavy into organizing and advocating for .NET. Seems like a nice guy. Let's apply some of the criteria to him. I didn't see any mention of Alt.NET or Fringe. Those might have been before his time. He did say he organized a group and some meetups, and I'm kind of starting to munge this conference organizer category to be more community organizer. So why don't we say that and give him a big yes. OSS maintainer, he mentioned a couple open source libraries. Non-Microsoft, he does not currently work at Microsoft. Non-Windows, I didn't see anything in that in his write-up about it. He's done a little bit of public speaking. His pitch was good. And let's see, he said he was from India. Or am I mixing him up with someone else? Yeah, he said he was from India. I think I'm going to reserve the underrepresented. I might come back and grant that to him later if I find that Indian developers are not very well represented in this list, I guess. Yeah, I know some of these decisions are a little arbitrary, but I'm doing my best and trying to make them quickly to keep the pace going. So forgive me if I fail at that. Let's see, Robin Korm. I recognize that name from somewhere, but I'm not sure why. Robin is a 43-year-old Dutch father, husband, and dog owner. Sounds like me, except for the Dutch. Living and working in Germany, a professional Java and passionate .NET developer. Working in IT since 1998. Main interest is technologies, understanding, trying, and explaining them to others. He's worked in both Java and .NET. There's much to be learned looking back at both of those environments, and I completely agree with him. That was one of the main pushing drives for alt.net, was looking outside the .NET ecosystem for good ideas. A big passion of his is the open source world, and I can only admire the work of the .NET Foundation and the services they provide. Guidance, mentoring. As a developer, I learned the hard way. Staying motivated and professional. Let's see, there's even something called an open source burnout. Looks like he's just talking in general about his observations of open source. Having worked for multinationals and being on site at many different sized companies, how open source is used throughout the world. Current state is very unhealthy. The .NET Foundation has a unique position. All right, his .NET contributions. In his spare time, he is the main developer of Greenshot for Windows, which is an open source and free screenshot tool written in .NET Technologies. Screenshot technology sounds like something fairly simple, but it's amazing how much time, effort, and knowledge one can and should put into this due to having a quite substantial amount of users. A lot of my time is spent answering questions, keeping a project alive. Current development is focused on modernizing, making the whole project more community friendly. Last year, got into contact with Microsoft about how we can use Greenshot as one of the early adopters of the desktop technologies coming in .NET Core 3. All right, he mentions some tweets and blogs that he's written. In his company, there's a small fraction of people using .NET technology, so he tries to be an advocate within his company, giving advice, code reviews, and writing newsletters. I assume that means internally to his company. Let's see. He did an interview with Andrew, answered to the membership questions. Let's see. International cross-regional collaboration, broadening .NET base. Thanks, Greenshot. Looks like he has some other things listed here. All right, let's see if we can apply the criteria to him. I didn't see any mention of alt.net or .NET Fringe. I'm going to skip over the community organizer. I'd like to see that be more public-facing community organization. He does maintain a large open source project around a screenshot tool. He is non-Microsoft. I didn't see any mention of non-Windows. I didn't really get a good feel for whether he was a prominent, not prominent public speaker, but a regular public speaker. His pitch was nice. He had a lot of detail in there. And we'll skip over the underrepresented. Let's see. Yeah, I've not used Greenshot. I'll have to check that out, especially if he's wanting to port it and make it cross-platform. That's pretty cool. Let's see. Sam Basu? I do not recognize that name. Let's see. He's been a community-focused .NET developer for the past 15 years and enjoyed every bit of it. He was a developer advocate and a Microsoft MVP for half a decade, and they're very rewarding. Nothing gets this developer more excited than when we can pull off amazing things with code. He appreciates the developer community, always tries to give feedback through education and passion. Why he is running. No software ecosystem can thrive without a passionate developer community. Over the years, I built developer communities from the ground up. I speak and write on Internet of Things. No, write a lot. That's a very different thing than Internet of Things. He put together a large developer conference. He talks to developers all the time as a Progress Telerik developer advocate. He's seen nuances of both commercial and open source software. Let's see. He's an INETA secretary on the board of directors. Communities thrive and fail. Let's see. Also, for more inclusion, funding for grassroots communities, better lifecycle supported projects. .NET has evolved. Modern .NET stack inspires creativity with mature tooling and broad platform reach. The most satisfying aspect of today's .NET as a community developer has been the open source transformation. I completely agree with that. Open source in .NET in my local area anyway, 10 years ago was like a naughty word. You know, a lot of developers thought what you meant by open source was cut and pasting from blog posts. Let's see. So his .NET involvement, he does keynote talks on .NET and its future. He speaks extensively on modern mobile, web, desktop, cloud development in .NET. He creates content. All right. He talks about OSS and cross-platform. Contributes to docs, open source. Play the architect enterprise projects. He's written open source signaler libraries. So let's pop back out here to Sam Basso. I didn't see any mention of the two conferences that I love. He does appear to have some community organization skills mentioned. Let's see. Did he call out specifically any open source contributions? Let's see. Docs. Open source Telerik UI for UWP. And Signaler wrapper libraries. So yeah, I guess that one applies. Non-Microsoft. He did talk about cross-platform. Or wait, non-Microsoft. He is not a Microsoft employee. Non-Windows. He talked about cross-platform development. I'll go ahead and throw that one at him. He said he was a public speaker. I'll give him the good pitch. He filled in a lot of detail there. And I'll leave off underrepresented. So let's go Sam Basso. Sean. This is actually, other than Phil Hack and Oren, who are prominent figures, not that Sean isn't a prominent figure. This is a person I've actually met and had conversations with. So let's check out his stuff. So why is he running in short? He brings an empathetic approach, community-focused mindset, the tools to explore problem space and define impacts and skills around teaching and building a consensus. A ton of energy. I would agree with that. Let's see. Help the .NET Foundation define its problem space and impacts. Help the community see shape and where it wants to go. I love this community dearly. He's grown up with it. I would jump at the chance to represent it. All right. As a foundation board member, establish and clarify personas, user types, and user research for those in the sphere of the .NET Foundation. We need to do research into this, but some user types could include burned out OSS maintainers, the F# community, newcomers to open source. I think that's a big push that needs to happen in .NET. I agree with Sean on that. Time-limited would-be OSS contributors, So very focused on getting people who are not already involved in OpenSS deeply involved in open source. I like that. Developers who are highly skeptical of Microsoft but are intrigued by .NET. Pushback maintainer. Let's see. Impact maps, a technique to drive the Foundation's mission. Rather than diving into the ideas, back on perspective, desired change. Heavily inspired. Impact mapping. Personas. All seems very nice. Let's see. Define the problem space. Let's see. I've got a ton of ideas. Like, what are your ideas? Let's see some examples. Suite of templates to help maintainers of open source projects deal with the different kinds of requests they receive. Tool set to help enterprises understand how much open source actually helps them. Establishing a bat signal. So a lot of open source advocacy, which I really appreciate. Onboarding, mentoring sessions, Twitch, Google Chat. establishing foundation-approved processes, a portfolio system for GitHub contributions. All right, surfacing the great work of community projects such as Discover.net and BuiltWith.net, providing a way for companies to see where they are relative to their peers in their open source journey. Why he's running the long version. Holy crap, man. To listen. He wants to listen to us. Foundation is one of the things we must do as a foundation is meet a variety of stakeholders where they are and help make it easy for them to take their next steps on that journey. I would agree with that. And I think I've seen that castingwider.net talk. I think you did that at Fringe, right, Sean? To make an impact. Of course. To spread love and stop the burnout, to address the cultural divide of open source and development practices in .NET, figure out a way to avoid not invented here syndrome. Oh man, can I tell you war stories about that? To better surface ways to help, because I grew up here and it feels like home. I agree with that. I stray away from .NET every once in a while, and I always seem to come back to it. Why Sean specifically? Quick word on some earlier comments. Let's see. Had a chance to do some learning in public speaking. Don't shy away from big challenges. Firmly believe in servant leadership. He's a teacher. And he's not a famous community member. Well, I knew who you were. Does that not count? His .NET contributions, he maintains a tiny link shortener project. During the kerfuffle around including the Packet package manager in the NuGet gallery, he created a Chrome extension to allow the expected result in the interim while things were discussed. He's contributed to Akka, the .NET Core Workshop, OctoKit, the ASP.NET Docs, UpForGrabs.net, the RavenDB book, fix some VB syntax highlighting in the Office docs, Refit, Discover.net. So he's definitely got the open source contributions. Blog post talks, Ask Me Anything. Yeah, so let's hop over here and check out the criteria for Sean. I've actually seen him speak at .NET Fringe. Sean, were you involved in Alt.NET? I don't remember you back then, but a lot of us were. There were a lot of movement around Alt.NET at that time. We might not just have bumped into each other. Yeah, cool. All right. Definitely into community organizing. He's an OSS maintainer. He does not work for Microsoft. I didn't see anything specifically about non-Windows development. Sean, you want to pipe in on that? Okay. Definitely public speaker. His pitch was definitely good and exhaustive. So there we go on that one. Especially when you're trying to run through 47 people and keep it under 2 hours. So did you see that final score, Sean? I got a 6, which puts you just under Phil. So you're doing pretty good. All right. So right after Sean, we have another Sean Walker. Yeah, no problem. Let's see. Sean Walker is currently the chairman of the advisory council for the .NET Foundation. So he's like an existing legacy. He helped author the original advisory charter. He's interacted on a weekly basis since 2014 with the .NET Foundation Executive Director, not directory. Wow, I've been thinking about Active Directory recently. Also the original creator of .NET Nuke, probably the most prominent open source project in .NET of all time. Honestly, .NET Nuke was everywhere for a while there. It's a web application framework for ASP.NET. Microsoft platform, 25 years professional experience in architecting and implementing enterprise software. Contributions, he's been an MVP and an ASP Insider for 10 years. Wow. Recognized by Business in Vancouver in 2011 as a leading entrepreneur in the 40 Under 40. Let's see, he's a board member of Outer Curve, the Codeplex Foundation. Currently employed as a technical director and enterprise guildmaster at Cognizant. His .NET contributions: I'm the author of or contributor to many open source projects, some of the better known ones: .NET Nukes, eShop on containers. He speaks at various conferences on topics such as .NET Core. Okay, so let's pop back out here. Sean Walker. I didn't see any mention of Alt.NET or .NET Fringe. I'm assessing community organization in the context of the other people. I mean, it seems like he's getting involved with a lot of professional organizations and contributing to them, which is a form of community organization. I wouldn't want to disqualify him for not necessarily like organizing a conference or that sort of thing. So I'll go ahead and pop that in there. And he is an OSS maintainer. He's one of the old school OSS maintainers in .NET. He is non-Microsoft. I didn't see any mention of non-Windows development. He did mention public speaking. I'm going to leave the last two off there and move on. Let's see, where are we at? Spencer Schneidenbach. All right. Thanks, Sean. Thanks for popping in. Glad to have you here. Let's see. Running for the .NET Foundation Board of Directors. I'm a community leader with proven experience. Developers and community leaders in .NET ecosystem. It's our .NET, so let me represent you. You put some time into this. I like that. Why are you running? .NET Foundation Board of Directors centered around advocacy and outreach. As a community leader, my goal is to represent the interests of the community leaders around the globe. User group leaders, conference organizers, Microsoft MVP, bloggers, conferences, speakers. Proven experience in building relationships with the .NET community. Leveraging those relationships. All right. .NET communities may or may not normally be the first choice. Bad rap from the old Microsoft days. Let's see. Interest in representing corporate and or so-called dark matter developers. Speak at conferences around the world. I get pleasure in interacting with folks who normally do not get a voice at that table. Traded tweets and emails with many of these folks with the goal of making .NET more accessible. All right. By earning a seat on the .NET Foundation Board of Directors, I want to be clear and focused voice to and for the .NET community. Big believer in brevity. Okay, a little bit more about me. I like that. About me, a little bit more about me. Two-time MVP. Let's see. Chief Architect at Rivit. I'm not familiar with Rivit. What do they do? Startup centered around integration technologies for the construction industry. Cool. That's probably Rivet then, not Rivit. I'm also a member of the ASP.NET or ASP Insiders and a frequent speaker at international events. Very cool. Relevant experience, two-time MVP, specializing in ASP.NET and C#, member of the Insiders, content and community outreach chair for the DevUp conference. All right. Teacher and speaker at events worldwide. Several videos on YouTube. Hallway track. Content advisor for conferences around the United States. Kansas City Developer Conference, Music City Code. Cool. Is it you that I need to reach out to get accepted, Music City Code? Because I really would love to go to that. Maintainer of several small .NET projects on GitHub, including AutoMapper attributes and Recess. Architect and consultant for firms looking to expand their use of .NET. Let's see. I did not see any mention of Alt.NET or .NET Fringe. Spencer, do you have anything you want to add on those two topics? Let me know. Definitely involved in community organizing. Has done some open source maintenance. I didn't get the feeling you were a Microsoft employee. I didn't see anything about non-Windows development. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Definitely a public speaker. Your pitch was really good. Not necessarily underrepresented. All right. Any of those you want me to correct? Let me know while I move on. All right. Okay, where are we at? We're down here with Spencer. So now we're going with Stefan Stefanov. All right. Mainly Mac. Cool, man. I will give you that one then. There you go, Spencer. So let's take a look at Stefan. Yeah, cool. I try to get my Mac into my speaking engagements and .NET platform as well, because I think there's a huge opportunity out there to get non-traditional Microsoft developers involved in C#. If they could just see how beautiful that language is, they would fall in love with it just like they do Node and Gopher and all of these other crazy languages. So, why is he running? This is Stefan now. He's been a part of the Telerik for almost 9 years, working with .NET developers from various industries and company sizes, being part of one of the biggest UI component vendors. Deeply acquainted with .NET developers, with projects they're working on, both small apps and large enterprise applications, with their need for the apps they're working on, latest trends. For the last few years, been a part of Microsoft's Visual Studio Partner Program. Feedback, let's see, Microsoft's working on as well. New friend, Cradle.net, supporting technologies. .NET is now part of his DNA. Wow. Have you grown a clippy like on your elbow? Let's see. .NET contributions, being passionate about open source. Made one of the first contributions recently. Open WinForms repository. I have also led the project of open sourcing the Telerik UI for UWP Component Suite. All right. So let's pop out here. Stefan, I didn't see anything about Alt.NET or .NET Fringe. Community organization. I didn't really get that feeling. Let's see. OSS maintainer. He mentions the Telerik controls for UWP. He is not a Microsoft employee. I didn't get a good feel for whether he's doing any non-Windows development. Did he mention speaking? I don't see it. Please correct me if I'm wrong there, guys. His pitch was a little light, and the underrepresented, I'm going to leave that one off. So we'll pop off on that. All right. So who is next? That was Stefan here. Now we're looking at Steve Gordon. I recognize his face, but I don't recognize his name. I wonder if I've met him before. He's proud to be a member of the .NET community and wants to be involved in shaping its future to make it even more accessible. Two important elements in his campaign: growing the community through meetups. He's a meetup organizer. If elected, he plans to invest his time on the board to help support community members who wish to start their own .NET meetups, providing advice and resources. By extending the support offered to new meetups and expanding the number of actively engaged communities, we can spread the enthusiasm. So he's very much an advocate. Believe that growing stronger, friendlier communities, definitely friendlier is the way we want to go. Okay, approachability through documentation. The second part of my vision aligns closely with my passion for helping developers learn about .NET. If elected, I intend to use my position in the .NET Foundation Board to help .NET Foundation projects to enhance the accessibility and approachability of their documentation. Focus resources to build upon the amazing work done by the Microsoft documentation teams. Okay. Let's check out his .NET contributions. He's a Microsoft MVP. Hey, Lou. Come here. Say hi. You can come say hi? Come on. Come on. Come up here. You want to hop up here? Say hi, Lou. Anybody see you? Oh, there's my doggy nose. There's a dog nose. Sorry about that. Get down, Lou. Okay, I know. I just tried to get you up in my lap, and I just push you away. Okay. So he's a Microsoft MVP, developing software in .NET for over 15 years. He's a senior software developer. Love to share the things that I learned with other developers. He has a YouTube channel. He authored a Pluralsight course. He enjoys speaking at conferences. All right, involved with a number of .NET Foundation projects and open source initiatives. Is a core contributor to the Humanitarian Toolbox. All right, contributed to Poly and the official Microsoft documentation. So let's see, this was Steve Gordon. I didn't see any mention of those two conferences. He did mention some community organizing and OSS maintenance. He did not appear to be a Microsoft employee. Didn't mention any non-Microsoft development. He did mention some public speaking. All right, thanks, Steve. So let's see, who's up? Virgil. Let's see, I'm not really paying attention to you guys in chat. Let's see if you have any feedback for me. I'm trying to kind of rip through these pretty fast because there's like over 45 of them. Mainly Mac. Let's see. You guys are off topic. Okay. Well, someone at me if you like want my attention. I will definitely pay attention to you. So Steve Gordon, let's go on to, it looks like I'm going to go with Virgil Bello. While he's running, he noticed a lack of candidates representing the game development field and high-performance.NET. Believes .NET is a perfect match for not only for game development, but also various related fields such as AI, language parsing, massively parallel programming. He'd like to have the .NET Foundation dedicate some resources to promote .NET in game development, encourage .NET ecosystem to take those use cases into account, and to encourage support for more platforms, console, mobile. Oh, that's cool. His .NET contributions, he's lead developer of a recently open source game engine. .NET LLVM compiler and runtime prototype, no longer active since Core CLR came out. And various contributions to open source projects such as Mono and LLDB. So let's take a look. That was Virgil. I didn't see any mention of those two conferences. Community organizing. I don't really see a mention of that. He does mention a couple OSS projects that he works on. He does not appear to be a Microsoft employee. I did not see him call out specifically non-Windows development, but he did mention LLVM compiler before Core CLR came out, so I'm thinking that makes him a cross-platform dev. I did not see any specific things about public speaking. Yeah. So I want to go ahead and go off on that. Let's see. Next up, Ben Adams. That is another name that I recognize. Let's see why he's running. .NET is his passion, and I'd like the .NET ecosystem to thrive with projects people consider and take dependencies on to be much wider than the narrow Microsoft blessed scope. Let's see. I want to say I met Ben Adams at a Alt.NET conference. So if anybody's aware, let me know. His .NET contributions have been most around making .NET faster with less allocations. Better known .NET contributions were to Kestrel, Core CLR, CoreFX, Ben Demystifier, and System.bin. I remember that going around. That was pretty funny. All right. So Ben, there were no specific mentions of the two conferences, so I'm not gonna give those because my memory might be faulty. Does he mention community organizing? He does not. So I'm gonna drop that one off. He is definitely an open source maintainer. Non-Microsoft. Yeah, there's not a lot to go on here based on his submission. That's kind of rough. Does anybody know if Ben's a Microsoft employee or not? I think he's not a Microsoft employee. I don't see anything about non-Windows development. I know he's a public speaker. So I will leave that score there. Doron Yondim. Let's take a look at that. I saw no representation in the list of candidates from the Middle East. He's led INETA Turkey for 4 years and INETA Middle East for another till Microsoft stopped supporting INETA. Loves to work with communities, help them reach larger audiences, build quality event. Couple areas where Microsoft can do better. Breadth, community outreach to regions where English is not a primary language is one of them. Organizing online events and expecting to reach all the regions might cover a relatively large percentage of the pie. However, we can do more. Offline localized events can be successful, driven with small subs. Student outreach, .NET contributions, MVP for 11 years. We already mentioned the INETA involvement. Regional director for 10 years. You can't be humble if you're asked to show your contributions, right? Yeah. With that said, I honestly don't know how to quantify the amount of speaking, writing, and mentorship I did in the last 10 years. He's written 5 books, spoke at various roadshows, like the DevOps Roadshow in 5 different countries, international conferences, tech eds, MS Days. All right. So let's pop back over here. We're talking about Doran. I didn't see mention of those 2 conferences. It does sound like he does quite a bit of community organizing. I didn't see a call out about like specific open source projects he's maintained. So let's leave that one alone. He does not appear to be a Microsoft employee. I didn't see any mention of non-Windows development. Lots of public speaking. I'm going to go ahead and give Doran the underrepresented category simply because he's based in the Middle East and trying to bring attention to Middle Eastern issues around .NET development. And I don't hear that a lot. So if anybody wants to argue with me on that one, I definitely listen to your input. So now we're going to go with David. Developer, I've worked with the .NET Runtime for many years. History, solid understanding of traditional .NET. Things like developer IDEs, infrastructure apps, run on, policies surrounding, influencing IT. Facing today, what do these traditional decisions look like in a modern open source world? Why he's running as a pivot, bringing a .NET perspective to one of the largest open source projects in the world, Cloud Foundry. I have a unique opportunity to help and guide Microsoft-based organizations in the cloud native journey, translating customer feedback. Foundation board member, I can bring those same experiences and passion. Create our community through combination of my years writing C#, passion for .NET, strong support, and member of the board. His vision as a trusted source to the .NET community, offers developers the ability, legal manner, open source development and collaboration of the .NET community isn't just cloud apps or services, it's embracing an ecosystem of technology that is created and grown by the .NET community. Okay. Let's see, thank yous, .NET Foundation contributions. I work closely with the Steel Toe team to help guide, document, and evangelize wonderful things this project offers to cloud native .NET. I also advocate for the use of Windows Server container technologies within Cloud Foundry and Kubernetes. Okay. Let's see. That was David. Sounds like he's done some open source maintaining. Is not a Microsoft employee. Didn't see anything specific about non-Windows. I got the impression he's done some public speaking. So let's go ahead and bounce out of that. That was David right here. So we are now going down to David Pine. Let's see. He's not a big name, and I'm not known by many of us. Okay. That's why I'm doing this whole exercise, is to find people like David. Please do not let that solely sway your decision. Okay. Why he's running. I'm running for the .NET Foundation board to make that happen. The goal is simple. The .NET Foundation should aim to bridge the gap between the developer community and the stakeholders within the .NET ecosystem. .NET Foundation has been doing a good job of this already, but there's always room for improvement. Okay. It's easy to imagine. Deepening reach capabilities by helping open source. Think gamification. Relevancy. I am a current standing Microsoft MVP and a Google developer expert in web technologies. It's gratifying giving back to the developer community. Fortunate to work with the amazing endless stream of innovations. Okay, .NET contributions. I've been passionate about the developer community for many years. I contribute back to it as often as time permits. I'm a consistent blogger. I love writing about .NET Core, ASP.NET Core, C#. My blog have been featured on InfoQ, .NET Curry, Twilio. Okay. Active open source developer with contributions on many Microsoft.NET open source projects. I love everything that GitHub represents. Just look at my GitHub page. All right, well, let's look at it since he told us to. All right. There's repos. Signal chat. Yeah. Nice. All right, links to his blog, Tech Track Lead, FallX. So it looks like he's done some community organizing and some speaking. So let's pop back over here. This was David. I didn't see the two conferences recognized. Done a little community organizing. I did not see a specific call out about actually being a maintainer. Do we want to limit that to people who have a project, or are contributions pretty good? See, spoke, dream big. I don't see him really calling out that he contributed to other projects. So I'm going to leave that one off. He doesn't appear to be a Microsoft employee. Non-Windows development. I didn't see that called out explicitly. It says he's done some public speaking. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. So let's see. Jenny Kohei. Let's see. She's been building applications that rely on .NET since version 1. So have I, Jenny. Kudos for being around since the early days. Owes a success to .NET in an important way. Application using Windows Forms, WPF, relied on by local governments and enterprises all over the United States and Canada. Large, small government, .NET developers. Her contributions. My first experience with open source was a founding member of OpenNetCF. That was a project for .NET's little sister, .NET Compact Framework. And its mission was to provide missing functionality mainly using pinvoke and Windows CE APIs. That was so long ago that Microsoft engineers were not even allowed to visit our site at the time. I remember those days. Fortunately, times have changed a lot, and more recently, I've been involved with the Windows Community Toolkit. I was such a noisy complainer about missing SQL client support in .NET Standard used by UWP apps that I was invited to present at the Build conference the year that support was announced. Awesome. I also presented an updated version of that session at Ignite. Okay. This year, I've been testing .NET Core 3 against my suite of production enterprise applications. Yeah. Okay. So she has an MVP page. Let me check that real quick. She's been around for a while. She might have done some alt.NET. Nope. What about Frange? Nope. Okay. So that was Jenny. So Jenny, I didn't see any mention of the two things. Community organizing. OSS maintainer. Non-Microsoft. Let's see. Public speaker. She mentioned that. And I'm going to give her the underrepresented point there. Okay, Eric. Let's check out Eric Sink. So there's the issue of my relatively low level of awesomeness. Looking over the list of other candidates, I wonder if I'll ever even be able to vote for myself. Okay. He's passionate about .NET. Well, that's quality stuff there, man. As long as it's existed. SourceGear was one of his first ISVs. .NET Core and Xamarin is what he's working with now. Terribly exciting. Let's see his favorite stuff. Don't much like technology religion. All right. You know, one of the things that I heard in .NET, alt.NET in the early days was that a lot of the alt.NET people had strong opinions that were weakly held. And I really liked that because that just meant that, yeah, I have a strong opinion, but I'm not unpersuadable. So I kind of like that. I like hearing varying opinions too. Cast votes Candace's technology interests align with their own. He loves F#. Reasons. F# fan. Let's see. Wished F# had more gravity in the .NET community. Let's see. Big fan of reactive extensions. Okay. Loves Xamarin. Uses .NET Core but not Azure. Prefers spaces over tabs. My man. Command line over IDE, Vim over Emacs, static typing over dynamic. Oh, now come on. You got to give Node some love. Why should we vote for him? So far, mostly giving you reasons not to vote for me. Well, I should have had a humor category. Some of these are pretty hilarious. Intentionally hilarious. Let's see. Filtering out the bad things is not enough. Mission statement won't help you. Let's see. .NET activities and contributions. I'm starting to think my criteria is very heavily on these sorts of things. Like, do you speak? Do you organize conferences? Do you go to conferences? Do you maintain open source? And it might be excluding some people. Not sure how I feel about that. Founded SourceGear, small software company in Illinois 22 years ago. Serial entrepreneur. Yeah, ship it, brother. 2019, people are still switching from SourceSafe to SourceGear Vault. Mobile data sync solution is SQL Server. Team built the cross-platform support for Team Foundation server and sold it to Microsoft. Peptown. High school team sports. He's a maintainer of SQLite PCL Raw, a low-level SQLite wrapper for .NET It's widely used as the layer below a number of other libraries, including SQLite.net, Akavash, and Entity Framework Core. Let's take a look back here. This was Eric. I did not see a mention of those two things or community organizing. He does maintain some OSS. He's not a Microsoft employee. Did you guys get the feel he does cross-platform development? Didn't he mention some Xamarin stuff in here? Yeah, Xamarin. So let's give him that one. All right, public speaking. I didn't see any mention of public speaking. So we'll go ahead and drop that one out. That was who? That was Eric Sink. Let's take a look at Jamie Rees. Let's see, why is he running? So the reason I want to run is because of one thing. I'm passionate about everything.net. Well, that's good, man. If you're passionate about Ruby, the .NET Foundation maybe wouldn't be the thing you'd want to join. Or maybe it is. I don't know. Let's see, outside of all things .NET, my time is pretty limited. 2-year-old boy, 13-week-old puppy. .NET contributions, Stack Overflow account. Regularly help the community try to answer questions. All right, 4K rep. My other contributions are not strictly .NET coding, but I've been bringing awareness to .NET through my open source project Omby. All the backend is written in .NET Core, and I make sure my users know about this. Debunking old myths is Omby. Yeah, it's an open source project, so he maintains one. Hasn't had a chance to speak at conferences. What can he bring? A fresh look and perspective. Project owner. Okay, this was Jamie. So Jamie, no mention of those. No mention of community organizing. He is an OSS maintainer. Doesn't work at Microsoft. I didn't get the feeling he was a non-Windows developer. He explicitly says he's not a public speaker. Okay, so we'll skip over that one. Let's see. Getting pretty close to the halfway mark here. So that was Jamie. So Antoine Himmery. Let's take a peek at him. Why is he running? He's a French software engineer working at Algolia, which is a startup centered around search technologies. I've used Algolia, great technology. His project for .NET Foundation is focused on strong advocacy of the .NET framework and representation of everyday .NET developers. He loves .NET, C#, and F#. He's in a good position to represent .NET developers in the foundation. Lots of developers still have misconceptions about .NET. Yeah. .NET is not open source. Many people think that. He's pointing that out. Change those biases. .NET is sadly underrepresented in the startup community. Yes, it is. Champion in the startup community. Okay, his .NET contributions. He is a technical lead for Algolia's .NET Standard Library. Published .NET application samples, and he's a public speaker. I'm an everyday evangelist for .NET. Okay. So back over here, this was Antoine. Those two, he's probably too young to go to those two things, to have gone to those two things. So, OSS maintainer, doesn't work at Microsoft. I didn't see anything specifically about cross-platform development. He's mentioned some public speaking. All right. Cut out on that. Let's see, where are we at? Antoine. Here is Gary Park. Take a quick look at Gary. Let's see. As you will hopefully see from the contribution sections below, deeply invested in the .NET ecosystem. GitHub account. Participate in open source side of things. Let's see. Although my time in .NET and open source has been overall positive experience, let's not sugarcoat it. There are things that are fundamentally broken in both of them. .NET has a stigma of being only a Microsoft and only for corporations. All right. Including lack of funding. Creation of the .NET Foundation is something which I believe can help with these problems. Let's take a look at his contributions. He's a Microsoft MVP, longtime contributor to Chocolatey, worked on Cake, maintainer of the Git Release Manager tool, founding member of the Aberdeen Developers .NET User Group, spoken at a number of .NET User Group conferences. Topics: started and continued to maintain Cake Contrib. I've been helping maintain awesome GitHub Actions. Recently started streaming on his Twitch channel. Let's check that out. And let's give him a follow. Good man. There you go. Recent projects he started. Chocolatey Code Extension, Azure DevOps Extension, integration and delivery assets for code extension, Cake recipes extensions, clip image code extension, and Gitter backend for Poshbot. All right, Cake, Aberdeen Developers. So let's see, we'll come back over here. We're looking at Gary. None of those. Done some community organizing, some OSS projects. He doesn't work at Microsoft. I didn't see anything specific about non-Windows development. Did he mention public speaking? Perform GitHub releases. GitHub user group. So I'm going to say yes on that one. Okay. So let's see, where are we at now? We are at, about the halfway mark. So I'm going to take a break for about 5 minutes. Get up and stretch, grab something to drink, maybe turn on some lights because it's starting to get dark in here. So I will be right back.
What do you desire? What makes you itch? What sort of a situation would you like? I do this often in vocational guidance of students. They come to me and say, well, we're getting out of college and we haven't the faintest idea what we want to do. So I always ask the person, what would you like to do if money were no object? How would you really enjoy spending your life? Well, it's so amazing. As a result of our kind of educational system, crowds of students say, well, we'd like to be painters, we'd like to be poets, we'd like to be writers, but as everybody knows, you can't earn any money that way. Or another person says, well, I'd like to live an out-of-doors life and ride horses. Let's go through with it. What do you want? When we finally got down to something which the individual says he really wants to do, I will say to him, you do that and forget the money. Because if you say that getting the money is the most important thing, you will spend your life completely wasting your time. You'll be doing things you don't like doing in order to go on living, that is, to go on doing things you don't like doing, which is stupid. Better to have a short life that is full of what you like doing than a long life spent in a miserable way. And after all, if you do really like what you're doing, it doesn't matter what it is, you could eventually become a master of it. It's the only way to become a master of something, be really with it. And then you'll be able to get a good fee for whatever it is. Somebody's interested in everything. And anything you can be interested in, you'll find others will. But it's absolutely stupid to spend your time doing things you don't like in order to go on spending things you don't like, doing things you don't like, and to teach your children to follow in the same track. See, what we're doing is we're bringing up children and educating them to live the same sort of lives we're living. And so, therefore, it's so important consider this question: what do I desire?
All right, folks, I am back. We have about 22 more of these to go through. Any feedback so far from you guys on how I'm going through them? I noticed I kind of started to fade off there towards the end. Trying to do all of these in one shot was maybe a bad idea, but I want to power through it and get it done to where my vote gets cast. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and go back to my browser here, and I'm going to lock this column down. Let's see, how do I do that? View, freeze, one row. There we go. Cool. So we are now starting down here with Leah. Let's see, Digital Drummer. For Gary, I would not check the non-Windows since Cake is cross-platform. Let's see, for Gary, you would check it? You would, okay. All right, thanks for the input there, Digital Drummer. I appreciate that. So next up is Leah. Let's go take a look at her. Oh, wow, not a lot here. Okay, so why is Leah running? Hey, I'm Leah Wagner, and I'm a dual computer science student from Germany. The dual study system gives me the opportunity to work in the software industry since 2017. To be honest, I did not work with .NET at this point, but I'm interested in learning new things and can bring you my unimpaired opinions, the view of a student and a newcomer, the knowledge about how this works in Germany and the software industry. All right, straightforward and to the point. Leah. Wow. Yeah. Sorry, there just wasn't a whole lot to go on there, Leah. Let's take a look at Mitchell Sellers. Let's see. Mitchell Sellers. Hopefully there's about 10 more really short like that. We're going to get through these pretty quickly. So, Mitchell Sellers, technology group leader for the largest .NET CMS, .NET Nuke, another contributor to .NET Nuke. Exactly how a project can benefit from the .NET Foundation. All right. Perspective of trying to transition such a massive platform as .NET Nuke into .NET Core. Let's see, his .NET contributions. Over the past 10 years, he's been contributing to .NET in a number of different ways. Contributed as the creator of numerous .NET and .NET Core projects, including his most recent .NET Core utilities that help make .NET Core development easier for specific business use cases. Contributed open source solutions to help developers create robust integration and delivery pipelines with Azure Pipelines, and supporting .NET Nuke. Let's see. Open source contributions through my own projects. Currently the technology leader for .NET Nuke. .NET Nuke. Let's see. He enjoys sharing his experience with the rest of the developer community and often speaks about his history at various tech events and conferences. Some board experience. Let's see. Served on a board for the DMACC, the .NET Nuke Association, Pilots Association. Okay, so let's see. That was Mitchell. I didn't see anything about Fringe or Alt.NET. Community organizing. He speaks, but I don't see anything about community organizing unless you consider the board experience. Something like that. I'm going to say no on that. Someone correct me if I'm wrong on that. He does contribute to open source through his contributions to .NET Nuke. He's not a Microsoft employee. I did not see anything specific about cross-platform development. He did mention some public speaking. Okay. Next up is Martin Larman. Let's take a look at Martin. Truly exciting .NET developer right at this moment. Running for a seat because I want members to have more opportunities to assert their influence. Strongly believe empowering .NET Foundation members with more influence is a strong incentive for the .NET community to self-organize under the .NET Foundation umbrella. Technical Steering Committee representation. I want to ensure .NET Foundation members have direct and permanent representation on the technical steering groups. All right, separating the elected board of directors and having a dedicated working group to providing technical feedback. Advisory council. Similar to the Technical Steering Committee working group, the Advisory Council should be elected as well. Let's see. Open source MVPs. Love or hate the MVP program, it's undeniable that the MVP program title enables many folks to advance their careers within the .NET community and access to the MVP Summit, which is a great networking event. It's a program awarded to people who evangelize Microsoft products. More recently, open source contributions have been started to be recognized as well. The current process puts the burden of proof on applicants by filling out forms and listing accomplishments. This works great for product and platform MVPs, but not for open source. I want the .NET Foundation to be responsible for recognizing community members and valuable contributions. That's a really great idea. Democratize NuGet. With over 17 billion downloads, NuGet is a pivotal part of the .NET ecosystem. I agree. Reserved namespaces. F# Foundation. Want to find common ground between the .NET Foundation and the F# Foundation. All great ideas. I appreciate all of those. His .NET contributions, editor config, board member, and maintainer of the .NET implementation of the parser. Used in ReSharper and Writer. He worked on OmniSharp, but he's no longer an active member. And he's worked on the Elasticsearch official .NET clients. Wow. I kind of like this guy. I like his pitch. So let's see. That was Martin, right? Yeah. Martin. I didn't see any mention of those two specific things. Didn't mention community organizing explicitly. He's an OSS maintainer. He doesn't work at Microsoft. Let's see. Elasticsearch. I don't see anything specifically about cross-platform development. If anybody happens to know him, feel free to pipe up for me. Public speaking. I did not see anything explicitly in there about public speaking. But I really liked his pitch. Almost makes me want to give him more things just because I want his score higher than 3 with this rating system. But this is the rating system we went with, so that's what I'm going to do. Let's see. Next up, we have Eric Scherboom. Let's see. Why he's running. He's passionate about .NET and open source. Offer a different point of view. He's not a typical candidate, as I work for a relatively small company. He doesn't live in the US. He's from Holland. And he's not a rock star developer. Okay. He has experience with multiple languages, including F#, Cloten, Scala, Ruby, Haskell. That's cool. I like polyglot developers. He embraces F#. Not only is F# a great language, it also has a vibrant community with lots of great open source projects. Let's see, support and mentor learning. Encourage people to contribute. His contributions are, he's contributed to several projects, including XUnit, Humanizer, and Cake. And he's a core contributor to Exercism. I have not heard of Exercism. What is that? It is an online platform designed to help you improve your coding skills through practice and mentorship. As a maintainer and mentor of the C# and F# tracks, I'm responsible for creating the best learning platform for students wanting to learn those languages. That's pretty cool. Let's see, who is this again? This is Eric. So Eric, I did not see mention of those two things. Sounds like he does do some community organizing. He's an OSS maintainer. He does not work at Microsoft. And as we learned earlier, explicitly calling out Cake makes him a non-Windows dev. I didn't see any mention of public speaking. I did like his pitch, though. So let's see. Rodrigo Diaz Concha. Let's take a look at that. Why is he running? I'm running because I care about .NET and its present and its future. Completely convinced that .NET is the best development environment. Let's see. He's a .NET developer since the first beta of version 1 in 2001. Awesome. He started with VB, but later adopted C#. He's a Microsoft Regional Director for 10 consecutive years. Recognized as an MVP. Long journey. Contributions. He's the author of Xamarin Forms in Action. The first book on Xamarin Forms in Spanish. Let's see. Author of Business Applications with Silverlight 5. He's a frequent speaker in Latin America, the US, and Europe. He's a LinkedIn Learning author. Podcast. He runs a podcast. Yeah, sounds like he's very involved in the community. Why have I never heard of this guy? Sounds like he's done some really good work, mostly in Latin America, so I can get that. Okay. Oh, looks like merge conflict or something there. So this was Rodrigo. I didn't see those two things specifically called out. Sounds like he does some community organizing, open source maintenance. Yeah, no, he's more of a writer than an open source guy. Like maintainer type guy, right? So we'll flip over that. He does not appear to be Microsoft. He does work with Xamarin Forms, so I'm going to call that non-Windows specific. Did he call out public speaking? Yes. I was like impressed with that. Okay, and I liked his pitch. And I'm going to go ahead and throw in the underrepresented for him too because of his focus in Spanish language and Latin America. I'm going to go ahead and give him that point. So let's go back, and we're now looking at Joseph Guadanango. I probably just butchered that poor man's name. I'm really sorry, Joseph. If you're watching this later on YouTube, beat me up on Twitter. Let's see. Microsoft Developer Service MVP has been an MVP since 2008. He's spoken at multiple conferences throughout the last 10 years. Ooh, I like that little highlight reel. It's pretty cool. He's been a developer for 20 years. Let's see. He works as an engineering director at Quicken Loans based in Detroit. He's a public speaker and presents internationally on a lot of different technologies. One of his primary goals in life is to leave this planet better than it was when I joined it. Okay. Let's see. I can help the vision of .NET and make it easier for others to adopt and grow themselves. In the past, I've worked with many other talented professionals while serving on the board of directors for Ineta. to help spread education and adoption of .NET. I feel I'm very well suited to the position. And he gave an interview with Spencer. I wish I'd taken time to go through here and find those interviews to where I could listen to them. His community contributions, he's contributed to the Azure documentation and content. He was a member of INETA. Community contributions, organizer for the Desert Code Camp and Arizona Give Camp. Open source projects, Bing Sharp, Bootstrap Theme Switcher. Looks like he's got several open source projects here he works on. He's a public speaker, book reviewer. Yeah, seems like an all-around solid guy. I didn't see any specific call out about those conferences. Sounds like he does some community organizing, maintains some open source projects. He is not currently a Microsoft employee. I don't see anything explicitly about cross-platform development. Looks like he's more of an old school .NET guy, which is not a bad thing. I'm not saying that's bad about him. He is a public speaker, and we'll leave that one there. All right. So that was Joseph. Now we're coming down here to Tony Solorin Sodara. Tony Solorin Sodara. All right. He unapologetically loves .NET. I apologetically love it. I always find myself making excuses for .NET. But, okay. Wants a hand in shaping the future. He wants to champion initiatives in the following key areas. Foundation endorsed projects. Isn't that kind of what the projects that are under the foundation are? Let's see. Does he differentiate that somewhere? Open source, quite painful because these libraries and tools they depend on haven't made the jump themselves. The initiative will aim to engage teams of volunteers from the wider .NET community to build open source ports and greenfield projects that plug the holes in the development experience. Foster open source culture by increasing confidence in community creating tools, reducing reliance on proprietary official solutions. Okay. Ecosystem integration. As we work on growing the .NET community, especially in underserved regions, we need to be reminded that we cannot function in isolation from other communities. For open source .NET to fully thrive, we need to get rid of the widespread impression that it should only be used when working with Microsoft platforms. Yeah, okay. His .NET contributions, he's an MVP and the lead maintainer of Coverlet, popular open source cross-platform code coverage tool. That's cool. Organizing speaking at meetups or conferences on topics specific to .NET. This guy looks like he's kind of right in my sweet spot. So let's pop over here. This was Tony. I didn't see any mention of specifically Alt.NET and .NET Fringe. He does some community organizing. He's an open source maintainer. He's not Microsoft. He does do cross-platform development. He is a public speaker. I liked his pitch, and I'm going to give him the underrepresented point as well. So that was Tony. Let's look at Andre Unction. He is the project lead for Benchmark.net. I love that project. That is a cool project. Find hundreds of issues and commits that involve that. 1.2 million downloads. He's a contributor to various .NET projects, including Core CLR, CoreFX, WPF, Mono, NuGet Client. He is the program manager or program director for .next, which is a large conference in Russia. That's cool. He's a frequent speaker. He's a Microsoft MVP since 2015. Writes a lot of blogs and articles. He is a developer of Writer at JetBrains. Okay. He's a huge fan of science. Okay. Seems pretty solid there. That was Andre. I didn't see these two conferences mentioned. He's done some community organizing, some open source maintenance. He doesn't work for Microsoft. He does do some cross-platform dev. He is a public speaker. Yeah, very nice. Let's see, Andrea Gaida? I think I saw her at .NET Foundation. I think I saw her speak on F#. I may be confusing her with someone else, though. Let's take a look, see if she mentions it. She's a tools and games developer from Lisbon. Yeah, I'm pretty certain this is her. I started working with .NET right about 1.1. She joined the Mono project. She worked at Xamarin. Let's see. Powered by Mono. Let's see. Built GitHub for Visual Studio and GitHub for Unity. In between, worked on C# language bindings for GNOME. .NET browser bindings for Firefox and Chrome. TypeScript for .NET compiler. I just completely lost my place. Where was it? There we are. Currently an independent game developer working on her first game with .NET. That's cool. Why I'm running. Spent much of my career building and working with communities using .NET in non-traditional platforms and settings. There are many communities of developers that are not involved or even aware of the .NET Foundation. Game developers, for instance, rely heavily on .NET for tooling and game scripting, but their world is one focused on custom workflows and close to the metal high-performance code. I would like to enable .NET Foundation to be that bridge which connects all of the .NET world. Yeah, cool. My .NET and community contributions: Mono, Moonlight, Silverlight, CPP Sharp, initial F# Mono port and GitHub org, the Bindinator 5000. Let's see. Google Summer of Code Mentor for the Mono project, TypeScript to IL to game modeling supercharged. Yeah, totally. I totally remember this person from .NET Fringe. From zero to open source, shipping GitHub. Okay. And what was her name again? Andrea. You get the .NET Fringe super bonus point. Sounds like she does some community organizing. Definitely an OS open source maintainer. She is not Microsoft. She does cross-platform. She's a public speaker. I like her pitch, and she's going to get that underrepresented point. Okay, who's up next? Iris. There you are. Iris Clausen. Okay. And blogs, tweets. I want to make sure that we keep the community inclusive and encourage newcomers to take part early on as contributors, evangelists, and active members. All right. Her .NET contributions. Here's a random selection of things that I've done. Things without links. I ran for 2 years a study group, .NET Meetup, with 300 members. Build MC at Build last year. That was fun. Organized and ran Azure Global Bootcamp several times. Volunteered as a judge on several panels, such as NASA Space App Challenge. Co-hosted Get Up and Code podcast. Not sure if it matters in this context, but I've made the top 100 most influential women in tech on Twitter. Some links, her blog, Channel 9 videos, Vimeo recordings, YouTube. Okay. Iris. I did not see any specific mention of Fringe or Alt.net, but those are kind of US centric, or at least Fringe was. Definitely some community organizing. Does anybody know if Iris does any open source maintenance? She doesn't really call it out explicitly here. It's more evangelism sort of thing. If anyone's aware, please let me know. She definitely doesn't work for Microsoft. Was there any mention of cross-platform development? Not that I see. Public speaker. Underrepresented. Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Iris. All right. Robert McLaws. Let's see. 36-year-old husband to a wonderful wife, 3 amazing girls from Tallahassee, Florida. How do you find time to program, my friend? Early 90s. I'm currently CEO of Cloud Nimble, a consulting firm that specializes in Microsoft technologies. Looks like he does some government work for the state of Florida. Medicaid abuse, but my passion is helping startups, which is why we're building Burn Rate, a ASP.NET Core app that helps startups scale out their sales teams. Dozens of opportunity to help shape the platform over the years, from the Whidbey Alpha design reviews back in 2002 to my contributions to OData and Resistor. .NET Foundation, important work in furthering contributions. Let's see. My .NET contributions, 5-time MVP. Built the first scrollable data grid component for ASP.NET 1. Wow. Built first dataset Excel export library. Helped shape ASP.NET 2. Ran the first blogging community for Windows, Longhorn Blogs. All right, OSS contributions, ported zlib, ported Mono's implementation of TPL. NuGet packages have nearly 56 million downloads on NuGet. First non-employee to be given contributor access to Microsoft's OData repo. First non-employee to be put in charge of Microsoft's open source project. Okay. That was Robert. Did not see mentions of those two. Has done some community organizing, maintained some open source. He's not a Microsoft employee. I didn't see anything specific to cross-platform development. Scrolling grid, Wayback Machine. Just double checking on that one real quick. I mean, he's ported some things, like Mono's implementation of TPL. Public speaking. All right, that one's pretty good. So that was Robert McLaws. Peter Nugo? Peter. I'm just going to call you Peter, brother. All right, why he's running. My reason for joining this campaign is because I'd love to see a better welcoming .NET community with more contributions from underrepresented communities. Community where beginners find it easy and with confidence to contribute to any open source project. Community where not just people who are focused on coding contribute. Nice. Safe spaces projects so students, parents, and people switching careers can get enthusiasm. All right, those are similar reasons. Made me join as co-chair to Node.js Nigeria. Hope to accomplish them if being elected as part of the board. .NET contributions are mostly around blog posts. If you find some of them on Pluralsight guides, Telerik blog, or my own blog. All right, cool. So that was Peter. Community organizing. I didn't get that feeling. Yeah, he said mostly around writing blog posts. So it doesn't appear to be a Microsoft employee. I didn't get a cross-platform vibe from him or a public speaker vibe. And underrepresented there. Okay. Who's up next? Michaela Hutchinson. Want to help it be a more diverse and inclusive community. As an openly queer trans woman, I will not only represent others like me, but will also support and advocate for other underrepresented folks. Cool. .NET contributions. I've been involved in open source.NET since 2005 when I built a drag and drop ASP.NET Web Forms designer for Linux desktop as part of the Google Summer of Code for the Mono project. Since then, I've been involved with a number of open source projects around .NET and Mono. Most of my contributions have been part of my work at Novell, Xamarin, and Microsoft. But I also have a few open source side projects, including a .NET Core compatible implementation of the T4 text templating language. Let's see. I don't just write code. I've worked as a product and program manager as well as software engineer to help architect and coordinate a number of cross-team collaborations and projects at Xamarin and Microsoft. I'm passionate about helping folks learn and get things done. I've given a number of talks about .NET and Mono. All right. I've also been the primary Summer of Code admin for the Mono organization for much of my time. Okay. That was Michaela. I didn't see those two conferences called out. She does some community organizing. She's a maintainer. She's not Microsoft. She definitely is cross-platform. She does some public speaking. I liked her pitch, and I'm going to give her the underrepresented point. Jessica White. The TLDR. Thank you, Jessica. Hey, Adrian, what's up, man? Offer valuable but rarely heard perspective from those without multiple years of experience and contribution. From my time running diverse events, training junior and student developers from public speaking, demonstrated that I can articulate sensitive and complex concepts, actively listen. Cool. Want to make it easier and more enjoyable to contribute to .NET. All right. I am Jessica. I'm a back-end software engineer, community advocate, conference speaker, and conference organizer. Actively partake in advocacy and outreach, not solely around .NET, but technology as an industry. Founded a diversity meetup. Nice. She often speaks, mentors, and volunteers at schools, colleges, and universities and boot camps. Let's see. .NET Foundation has been open about its efforts to lower the barrier of entry to open source and .NET related events. She knows how intimidating it can be. Absolutely. It feels important that people of all levels and background feel empowered and informed on how best to contribute. I joined the industry late, coming from a non-typical background. That's a good way of putting that. And in many respects, I am still quite new. Okay. Open source contributions. Help set up and run open source projects for my past employers, including introducing the standards proposed by GitHub and addressing any issues and pull requests. Actively giving feedback on how I believe the experience can be improved. Recently raised an issue on the Visual Studio Test Platform repository. Had a pull request accepted on a repository for the documentation of ASP.NET and ASP.NET Core. Let's see. DDE East Midlands. Okay. This was Jessica White. I didn't see those two specific events called out. Sounds like she does some community organization. She does some OSS work. She's not a Microsoft employee. Definitely is a cross-platform developer. Did she call out specifically public speaking? Yeah. Let's grant her that one and give her the underrepresented point. Let's see. Oh, yeah, man. When I first set out to do this, Adrian, I did not expect it to be this amount of work. But now I'm kind of committed to it, and I'm going to get through it, man. I'm going to get through it. So I am getting pretty close. I think I have about, 10 more people to go through. And then what I intend to do is sort this list by the total points, and I'm going to take the top 10 people. And in that order, I'm going to cast my votes for them. So that's kind of the gist of what I'm doing here. I appreciate you hanging out with me and all the people who've been listening to me kind of mumble to myself a little bit. It's okay. Hopefully that's entertaining, or at least you're doing something else while you listen to me mumble. Okay, let's get back to it. Let's power through. Okay, so we just did Jessica White. Let's go check out Mr. John Skeet. Everybody knows who that guy is. Yeah. Okay, so firstly, I am nearly not running. At this time, candidates are men and mostly white. That's not good enough. Okay, John Skeet, I'm going to take my vote away from you. Okay. Very real problem. It's not inevitable. It's up to all of us to fix it. I dig it. Let's take a look at your .NET contributions. Best known in the community for Stack Overflow. He's also active at conferences and user groups. Wrote a book. Convener of the ECMA technical group for standardizing C#. Technical steering group. In terms of code, Google Cloud Platform Rock for .NET developers. Notatime. Let's see. CoBlog, personal blog. John Skeet. I could probably have done this scoring without hitting him. I don't think John Skeet ever showed up at an alt.net meeting that I was at, but I would be really shocked if he wasn't involved with a group at some point. Is anybody aware? If you're aware of John Skeet being involved in the early alt.net stuff, let me know. I don't recall seeing him at .NET Fringe. Community organizer. Does John Skeet organize communities? I'm going to call that a no. He's more like just a star that shows up, right? He is an OSS maintainer. He is non-Microsoft. I don't see anything specifically about being a cross-platform dev, but I would be surprised if he wasn't. Like, very surprised. So I'm going to go ahead and skip that one because I don't know the answer off the top of my head. He is a public speaker. Yeah. So there you go, John Skeet. You got 3 points. John Skeet. Yeah. Yeah, me too. I would be shocked as well. Should I give him that point? I mean, the guy basically said he doesn't want the job in the first sentence. I'm nearly not running. So I'll go ahead and give him that point because I think there's already people that have outscored him based on this criteria. So let's go check out Mark Bruins. Okay. Mark Bruins. Hi, I'm Mark, 28-year-old cheesehead. All right. My mission is to help lighten the burden every minute that we can. Passion for building and growing open source projects. In my limited years of experience, I've been active in open source with whole my heart. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, here's kind of my definition of the alt.net stuff. Was a person involved with alt.net either as a participant, speaker, or writer? Yeah, that's the criteria. No, I didn't call him a cheesehead. Let's see. His mission: fix a bug, create this feature. Board member, everything in my power to help the maintainers. Okay. Yeah, his passion: maintaining and growing open source projects. I have been a maintainer of MVVM Cross and a maintainer of Newkeeper. Okay. Thinks he's a good fit. Only been doing open source for about 3 years. He's a professional developer for 3 years. He's just starting. He's very Xamarin focused, so cross-platform guy. He blogs. He's got an MVP award. New open source project. I don't see anything specifically about him being a public speaker. So, Mark Burns, those 2 things, nope. Community organizing. Yeah, I don't think so. Community organizing. OSS maintainer, yes. Non-Microsoft. He does cross-plat. Does he talk about public speaking at all? I didn't see anything in there, but I did kind of skim it quickly. If somebody happens to see that, let me know. So we'll pop off on that. So nobody so far. What do you mean, Adrian? Yeah, there have been a couple alt.net, or just one, Phil Hack. I thought Sean would be a member of that group, but he said it was a little before his time. He was involved with .NET Fringe. And I want to say Ben Adams was involved in alt.net, but I can't say with certainty, so I didn't give him that point. You know what I'm saying? Do you recall if he was involved in .NET Fringe? I'm asking Adrian because he was involved with me in all this alt.net stuff, and he was one of the organizers for .NET Fringe. Yeah. So if you happen to recall if Ben Adams was involved in Fringe, let me know. So let's see. We're going on to Sunny. Where is Sunny? Ahuwanya? Sunny Ahuwanya. Please tell me I said that right. Yeah, I can't recall either. All right, been working with .NET since version 1. Async await. Written a few open source projects. Software engineer at Facebook. Prior to Facebook, worked on several companies of various sizes. Refreshing to watch .NET ecosystem embrace open source. I agree. Software development, accessibility, and outreach. The number of software developers is doubling roughly every 5 years. Some of the proposals include sponsorship of the .NET open source projects useful for academia, game development, web, and mobile frameworks. .NET Foundation is well positioned. All right. His contributions: C# pad. Cool. REST bus. Codified the buffer pooling technique used by Kestrel. Wow, pretty cool. Final thoughts. All right, that is Sunny. Sunny, no mention of the two projects. I don't think he mentioned anything about conference organizing or meetup organizing. He does do some open source. He's not a Microsoft employee. Non-Windows development. Anything pop out there to anybody about non-Windows development? Doesn't look like it. Public speaking. Not that I see. And I'll give him the underrepresented point there. Okay. Morten Nielsen. Hi, Morten. Let's see. He's been working with .NET since the beginning. Is actively involved with opensource.net. Community work's the main reason the career today. Starting to build together. He's been an MVP since 2011. Works full-time building .NET class libraries, WPF, UWP, Android, iOS, Xamarin Forms. Commercial customer building .NET. Through my open source, however, I'm able to interact with a broader community. Okay. .NET contributions. Very active in the .NET community in a variety of ways, providing feedback to the stakeholders, submitting PRs, .NET projects, maintaining a slew of .NET libraries and tools on GitHub, filling gaps, sharing controls. For instance, I helped kickstart and set the direction of the Windows Community Toolkit. Okay. Links, some projects. All right. So that is Morten. Didn't see any mention of those. Community organizing. Not specifically. He's an open source maintainer. He does cross-plat. He's not a Microsoft employee. He does cross-platform. I didn't see anything about public speaking. So I'll drop that one off. Let's see, Luce Carter. Hey, we're getting close to the end here, guys. And ladies, if you're watching, folks, I really need to switch that flip that switch in my brain. Luce, big issue. Diversity in tech is a big issue. Trying to address. Opening the board. I knew something I had to put my hat into the ring for. I am proudly neurodiverse, gay, non-binary, although I'm happy with she, her pronouns. Fairly junior developer who is also an MVP. Underrepresented person in technology, positive role model. Rock on. Graduated in 2014, started as a software development graduate. Not everything I did on my 2 years as a grad was coding. Let's see, but actually strongly believe positive experience. Contribution sections below. Yeah, nice. .NET contributions, Xamarin Docs, a newsletter for Weekly Xamarin, Soundbite FM official editor. Okay, cool. So let's see, that was Luce. No mention of the two specific conferences. Community organizing. Versus debugging. Yeah, she hasn't really been around that long, but sounds like a fascinating person. Does some OSS, non-Microsoft. Talked about Xamarin, so some cross-platform development there. And I'm going to go with the underrepresented point. Okay, Dave Glick. I recognize that name. Where do I recognize Dave Glick from? Passionate about open source. Strong vision. Okay. Multiple perspectives, leadership roles, passion. Let's see. I'm running for a position on the board of directors because I want to continue giving back to the community. I've already dedicated myself to promoting open source in .NET through a variety of projects. Discover.NET, .NET issues, TwitterBot. Up for grabs. He does some blogging. And it looks like he's a MVP. Vision, communication with member projects, communication between member projects, promoting .NET open source, inclusion and diversity. In case you haven't noticed, I'm a white dude. Open source sustainability, education and early introduction. Let's see. Involved in many different roles, which gives me a distinct perspective. As a contributor, I try to help other projects whenever I can. As a maintainer, I maintain several .NET open source projects. YM, Build Analyzer, Azure Pipelines, Test Logger, Scripty, team member, healthiest open source projects, often the team. It's contributed to multiple .NET Foundation projects, Cake, Reactive UI, leadership. Okay. That's Dave. Hey, Dave. Did you say something? I better check that again. I didn't see specifically community organizing. Oh, here it is. Speak at local events, user groups, code camps, participate in podcasts, live shows, provide outside feedback. Okay. Doesn't necessarily organize him, but he is a public speaker. Maintains some open source projects, not a Microsoft employee. Does some cross-platform, is a public speaker. All right. Nate. Hey, Nate. He has been coding since he was 13. .NET Core. I care deeply about democratizing education. I wrote and published the Little ASP.NET Core book. I think about open source, huge multiplier. However, education and learning resources often lag behind. Tutorial steps you need are buried in a blog post or video somewhere. It can also lead to cargo cult practices when concepts aren't explained well and hand wavy. Okay. What I do on the .NET Foundation, documentation and build easier ramps for beginners. Okay. Projects and contributions, Little ASP.NET Core book, Recaffeinate, that's his blog. Some OAuth and OpenID Connect documentation. Secure web applications with ASP.NET Core. Looks like he's a significant writer. Debugger tool. Deep dive into token authentication ASP.NET Core. Answers on Stack Overflow. Doesn't explicitly call out doing public speaking, does he? Just want to make sure I didn't miss it. Okay, so this was Nate. OSS maintainer, non-Microsoft. Does he explicitly call out cross-platform? Not explicitly. Anybody happens to know if Nate's cross-platform, let me know. He didn't really say anything about public speaking. Okay. There we go. We're down to the last two. We got Miss Sarah Chips. Let's see. She is an engineering manager at Stack Overflow. Co-founded JewelBots and Girl Develop It. She is amazing. My first community event ever was a .NET launch in New York City in 2001. She remembers thinking, wow, developers kind of smell funny. Wait a minute. Okay. She's an MVP. Platform. As a .NET Foundation board member, I'll focus on 3 questions. What are we doing to bring .NET to the next generation of coders? What are we doing to make sure OSS is within .NET is sustainable? Are we offering the best tools and documentation? That's cool. Open source and community contributions. I mean, Sarah's amazing. .NET debugging for newbies. Hurting code. .NET rocks. JewelBots. This developer life. Community contributions. Buildbright. C-based. Spark Core Twitter plugin. JewelBots OSS repository. Yeah. She's awesome. She kind of hits my sweet spot for what I'm looking for in a board member. I don't recall if Sarah was involved in alt.net. I'm pretty certain she was at .NET Fringe though, and she does some community organizing. She's an open source maintainer. She doesn't work for Microsoft. She definitely does cross-platform. So great public speaker, and she gets the diversity point there. The last one is Natalia Zenisinka. Natalia Zenisinka. I think I have that right, because I believe the D is silent. So anyway, Luce works at Microsoft. Did I mark him down as Luce? He is a Microsoftie. Okay, thanks, Adrian. I appreciate that. Duzenisinka. Huh, okay. All right. This is my last one. Why she's running. Greatest influence defining my career. Do like Doug? What? Wait a minute.
What?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Duzenisinka.
What?
Okay. Fighting my career, biggest place in my heart since programming. 10-year-old me was inevitably changed. Enthusiasm, John Skeet, Phil Hack, Hanselman. Yep, all the big dogs. C#, computer science degree. I've seen her present. She's an amazing presenter. Open source, large-scale analysis, strength of platform environments, who are well-known and recognized figures for their highly impactful contributions to .NET, and they rightfully have a bigger likelihood to get elected. If I'm elected, I will have no less value and potential to make an impact. I agree. Help.NET ecosystem, representing independent communities of software engineers who truly love .NET. All right, recent project, deep dive project. .NET Fringe Talk, Parallel Programming with F#, O'Reilly OS Colin Talk, Podcast Channel 9. So let's see. I know I saw her speak at .NET Fringe. She's too young to have been at alt.net. Community organizing. Fringe Talk. I don't see anything specifically called out about organizing meetups or conferences. She doesn't call out anything specific about maintaining open source projects either. Are you aware of anything, Adrian? Let me know. She is not a Microsoft employee, I believe. Well, there's her LinkedIn. I can just look at it. Yeah, she works at Amazon. Okay. So let's see. Not a Microsoft employee. She does cross-platform. She is a public speaker. And she gets that underrepresented point. And friends, there is all 45 scored. So I'm going to duplicate this tab. And then I am going to sort sheet by A to Z. I want to sort it the other way, Z to A. And my top 10 is these people. Andrea Gaeta, Phil Hack, Tony Soloran Sodora, Michaela Hutchinson, Sarah Chips, Sam Basu, Sean Killian, Spencer Schneiderbach. No, I got that wrong. Schneidenbach. Rodrigo Diaz Conca. So I'm going to put those names in over here in that exact order. Just give me just a second to organize my windows real quick. So Andrea. That's Audria. There we go. That is my number one choice. Mr. Phil Hack gets my number 2 choice. Where you at, Phil? There he is. Tony, number 3. Michaela. All right. Sarah. Is her name not on the list? Sarah Chips. There she is. Okay. Sam. Sam Basu. Sean Killing. Spencer. And there we are, folks. There are my top 10. Wait, did I miss somebody? Andrea, Phil Hack, Tony, Michaela, Sarah, Sam Basu, Sean, Spencer. What? Andrea. Oh, I see. Jessica White is my 10th person. So, Jessica White. And once again, I went through this entire process mainly to get back into streaming again with an easy topic. I didn't really intend for it to take, 2.5 hours, something like that. And because I wanted to use some criteria other than I recognize that name or I've talked to that person before. So you guys just watch me go through all of them. I did skim pretty heavily, but hopefully I skimmed evenly across all the names. So there we go. I'm going to cast my vote. Confirm. And there they are. So I think that is all I'm going to do for the night. That's the end of the stream. Let's see. Is there anybody streaming right now that I can raid with my handful of people that are still with me? Let's see. Who's on? Quiltoni, Elliface. How about we go check out what Elliface is doing, because Quiltoni already has a huge audience. So let's do that. All right, here we go, guys. And thanks for hanging out with me this afternoon. I will see you next time.